Okay, so I'll get started. My name is Elena Fordham, and I'm the founder and principal of Beverage Marketing. We create custom solutions for your B2B or B2C brands, and our focus is always being customer centric and just really out of the box thinking as much as possible, and very, very tailored to your brand. We kind of live and breathe our clients' brands. Um, and so with that, today we're going to be talking about content marketing. It's kind of a 101 for your business to business brand. And I can just talk a little bit about our team. My name is Elena Fordham again, and I've got about 15 years experience doing marketing, public relations, and event management. We typically work with small to medium-sized businesses and across the GTA. I started this business in Toronto and then relocated to Aurora. Found it to be a good move for me. Particularly as once COVID hit, it just turned out that my clients, I used to do a lot in hospitality. I came from Four Seasons, and I'd launched a beauty brand called Bite Beauty, which was acquired by Sephora, and I was the marketing director there, and then worked for a research firm, and I was selling an awards program for consumer packaged goods from food, home, health, beauty, that kind of thing, with Better Homes and Gardens magazine out of New York. And the research company was based in Toronto. So after that, I decided to go out on my own and founded Beverage Marketing. And so in the beginning, yeah, my clients were like Union Station and a couple of restaurants in downtown Toronto, like Amano Pasta, Union Chicken, like some of them are up here. When I relocated, though, a lot of my clients kind of shifted. So I started doing professional services like HR consulting, an AI technology solution, which is now it kind of like they want to eventually be a SaaS platform. So very, very different clients up here, and I'm loving it. And another client of ours is STEM Minds, which is in Aurora, and they do education for kids with, who want to learn STEM. So we've got quite a roster of different types of clients. And my counterpart, Katie, she's our account supervisor. She'll be joining us a little bit later. She's a communication strategist, phenomenal background from Ryerson, like broadcast journalism. She's been a TEDx speaker at conferences. Social media influencer with micro influencer with 10,600 followers on Instagram. She hosts a live stream, and she's very focused on women empowerment. So she actually has a speakers bureau as well. So she helps sort of get female, speakers on the circuit. And then you've got Miriam Golubgir. So she has her own agency, Digital Marketing Experts, but she and I have really partnered up because we just have so much complementary skills. I'm heavy on the writing and the public relations. She does a lot of like the back end, like helping strategize on the digital advertising and things like that. So the two of us are based up here. She's in close to King and I'm in Aurora. And just one thing about our business, like our ethos is really, we challenge entrepreneurs to say, why not me? And the reason is that's how we got started. There was, toiling, working in the corporate world for years and years, and then just, working for lots of other entrepreneurs. And then one day kind of waking up and going, why am I not doing this? Like, it seems really exciting and fun to kind of run your own business. And I'm sure a lot of you feel this way, but sometimes like you find your skills are kind of, you don't fit in that perfect box anymore. Like you kind of like, for me, I'm kind of a one-stop shop. There's a lot of things I can do. So I didn't want to be pigeonholed. And this was the perfect fit, starting my own business. So I hope everyone on this call today feels empowered at the end of this to say, why not me? And, there's no reason why I can't run my own business too. A little housekeeping, just feel free to post if you want to take a snapshot of any slides that resonate with you or you want to look back on. You can also post online on Facebook, Instagram. We're on LinkedIn, obviously, so feel free. The other thing I wanted to mention is please ask questions along the way. It helps us cater our content to you. And lastly, feel free to participate, like using the chat, because I'd love to get your feedback and just understand where you're at in your journey. So today we're going to talk about how, understanding your brand position, because that's really, really important before you actually start doing content marketing. How to like target your audience and then plan that strategy so that it's doable and it's effective. And lastly, you obviously want to implement your strategy and then measure your success. And we'll throw some case studies in at the end to give you some examples of what we think are great ways to do content marketing at a very affordable cost. And then we have a bonus session. So Katie will jump on closer to noon. She'll talk about like using social media for content marketing plays and how to kind of amplify the content you create. And the last thing we'll do is tools of the trade and just kind of give you a couple sites that we think are great for helping you save money while, getting the job done faster when it comes to content marketing. And we have a free takeaway today, which is just like essentially a content marketing calendar template, but it's a great way to kind of set yourself up for success. And I can put that in the chat at the end of the meeting. So what is content marketing? Content marketing is a strategic marketing approach. And the main thing about it is it's creating value for your potential customer or client. It's distributing something that's relevant, it's consistent, so you got to do it often. That's, I think, the hardest part. And you really want to attract and retain and like focus on a very niche audience. You're not trying to be everything to everyone, which I think is kind of what happens in business to consumer. You have a lot larger audience typically that you're going after. So I think in many ways, business to business can be a lot more focused and actually give you better results than even consumer driven content. And ultimately, we want to drive profitable customer action. At the end of the day, we want to make a profit, right? So 5 reasons to do content marketing. Well, the first one is obvious. It may or may not be obvious, actually. It's like the fact that you can do it yourself. It's basically free. It's just whatever you're willing to put in is what you get out. It improves conversion rates because it allows you to educate and with your leads directly and your customers and sort of connect with them on a level that shows thought leadership or shows them that you know what you're talking about. It's content that lives online forever, so it grows in value over time. It's content that builds brand visibility. So it builds awareness. Just by putting content out there on a regular basis, you start to actually build visibility for your brand. And organically, it will improve your search rankings, so your search engine optimization, and often with not too much spend. I think the key with content is just being patient, because it can take 60 to 90 days to start seeing results. And then definitely like over a year, you can really start to see your search engine or, search engine rankings going up if you're using the same keywords and being very, you following the rules of SEO essentially to build your content. And lastly, it can directly generate sales and or new leads. So everybody's pretty much moved online since COVID, but I think that was the trend anyway, obviously. And yeah, it's actually quite amazing how people will reach out over like a single article that you write or comment and feedback and start to follow you and then become loyal to your brand. So I've seen it in action for so many clients, and it's always a little daunting, I think, at first, but it's very, very, very important, especially now in this market, to stand out with content. One last thing. Well, 1 or 2 more things. So content marketing generates 3 times more leads than outbound marketing. So the difference between outbound and inbound is, outbound is like kind of like cold emails, like maybe through LinkedIn messaging or, e-blast to a subscriber list you buy. This is much more targeted and you're basically drawing the customer to you based on like search keywords, and content that they're interested in, and living and playing online where they play and live, you know? So for an example, like LinkedIn comes up a lot because businesses and business owners are all on LinkedIn pretty much. You have 6 times higher conversion rates and 8 times more web traffic to your site. So all very good reasons to pursue content marketing. And just a quick, because I feel like sometimes there's some confusion. What's the difference between business to consumer, you know, where it's more like it could be fashion or retail or, you know, grocery items you buy at the grocery store, versus B2B, where, you know, here you can see on the left side, it's small focused target market, typically a long buying cycle, especially if they're buying like a SaaS platform or a year-long subscription of something, or ongoing retainer services or project services, or they're just purchasing very large inventory items. There's a less personal value. It's like, it's less personally driven with their, like, you know, what's my personal brand, like who aligns with me, you know, versus like, you know, showing that you know your stuff, and that you're, you know, the people around, the people that are on your team and the people delivering the services that you offer are like, they know what they're doing and they're the best at it, or they offer the best price, or whatever your sort of point of difference is, that it comes across. It's based on relationships. So, I mean, I'm sure all of you know, like some of the best clients or customers you get through business to business is through people you know, and like that face-to-face, like trade shows tend to be really successful because people go and they, you know, they find that they get more out of a conversation in person. But unfortunately we don't have that, so content marketing is really the next best thing. In terms of audience seeking, now you can really segment online and really see who you're trying to target and get tons of analytics and insight based on the back end of your website, or looking at your LinkedIn corporate page. You can really tell who's actually following you and cares about what you have to say or shows an interest. And so that's why, again, you're focusing on lead generation through content marketing. Any questions so far? Feel free to jump in. So another stat that I just wanted to share is that the percent of B2B content that marketers are using is like through social media. And this is organic, or organic means unpaid, like you own the content, you're creating it from scratch. You know, most people are on LinkedIn. So 95% of that content's being shared on LinkedIn corporate pages, through Twitter. And then you'll see a close third is Facebook. And then below that, you've got YouTube and Instagram. So you'll see, like when you're talking direct to consumer, typically that's very heavy on YouTube and Instagram, whereas you don't really find that in business to business. And even when you're doing paid opportunities, you know, whether it's like, you know, the type of content you're advertising online, you're still going to LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. But LinkedIn is actually, although it's the priciest place to advertise, it's also the most targeted. Like you can target by title, industry, and there's a myriad of ways that you can target people online so that it seems very organic and it doesn't feel like an ad. Oops. Can you guys still see my screen? Just want to make sure. So 7 steps to a content marketing strategy. Oh, and I see some stuff in the chat. 1 second. Oh, Bonnie Sommerfeld. Hey, everyone. I'm a brand web designer and excited for this. I love content. Great. Great to meet you, Bonnie. Okay, so 7 steps to a content marketing strategy. The first is, obviously define your goal, and whatever that might be. So if you're just starting out, maybe it's just getting brand awareness. You know, if you're further into this funnel where you're trying to attract like sales qualified leads, as we call them. So it's somebody whose criteria you've identified, like they're the exact business, they make certain amount of money per year in a certain demographic in a certain area of your, like a certain location. Once you have all that in mind, it's like, you know, what do I want to achieve? Like, do I want to convert sales online? Do I want to convert sales, you know, through like calls and follow up, like a demo or a pitch that follows like some inquiry through your website, or, you know, through an email on, you know, LinkedIn or something like that. The next one is researching your competition. We'll show you some examples of how we do that. And obviously, knowing your competition helps you understand how you're going to differentiate yourself. It also helps you look at their content and understand what you could do better. And, you know, I'm not a fan of like reinventing the wheel. So if there's things they're doing well, you do it, but your way, you know? Um, the third one is researching buyer personas or your target audience. So really understanding their pain points, like what keeps them up at night, what's the main reason they purchase from somebody like you, things like that. And then of course, from there you start planning. So you just, I always like just a really like fresh brainstorm where there's no parameters at the beginning. Just jotting down a whole bunch of ideas of content that you think your target audience would be interested in. And then of course, you get into the nitty gritty of like planning by month and creating a work back schedule and putting dates and responsibility, like who on your team's responsible for that content. And I'm pretty like detailed. I guess you don't have to be, but I find, especially when I'm working with clients, the more detail I can put in about, you know, draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, and then go live, like that makes all the difference in terms of actually holding yourself accountable to these dates and getting the job done. Number 6 is implement the content. Obviously, a hint here is that you want to start small and you don't really want to overwhelm yourself. So I would say like pick 2 social media channels, start there, see how you go, and then build from there. Because, you know, for example, for every social media post, let's say you put up, you have to resize that image for the channel you're on, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn and Instagram. Unfortunately, they are not all, it's not like a one size fits all. The message may also have to change from Facebook versus LinkedIn. Like it's a very different type of platform and people have different expectations of what they're going to see on those platforms. Number 7 is measure your results. And I think this is often left to the wayside, but I think it's important, you know, even once a month to go back to your website, check the Google Analytics, any measurements you can get your hands on just to see how you're actually performing. And the bonus is that like a lot of social media platforms now where they help you automate the process of, you know, scheduling and putting content online, also have like a ton of measurements and they just deliver reports to your email. So it's pretty easy. Any questions? And feel free to jump in the chat and tell me where you are in this process, because again, I can help you like hone in. B2B case study. So one of our clients is called Orbiseed. It's an AI technology company, and they do like a number of amazing things, and they're really targeting, like at the beginning we were targeting insurance, commercial property insurance, but actually they've expanded verticals. So this case study is based just on insurance, just for the sake of simplicity, but they are essentially, they have pre-trained models that they use to help companies kickstart some of their like document processing. It's quite complex, but the whole point is, you know, they speed up efficiency, they increase cost savings, they have incredible accuracy with the reporting that they do. And so they're targeting risk managers within insurance and also like engineers within construction. So for them, this is just an example, but I said, you know, define your goal. And their goal really is to become the leading AI solution for risk engineering in commercial property insurance. So it's a very, very specific goal. and they're starting out. So brand awareness is really important. Building thought leadership, credibility, those kinds of things are crucial. So how do we do that? So we had to then go and define our content marketing goals. One of them was to grow their email database. The second one was, actually more importantly, was just build general overall awareness so that when they did call these potential clients, that they weren't like they'd never heard of them before. And it's a long lead sale. You're talking like 18 months, could be 6 months to 18 months, depending on the client. And then also they want to improve the caliber of their sales qualified leads. So really, we used LinkedIn a lot to kind of hone in on who's the exact title of this person in this massive insurance company, which is, embracing AI and technology and growth and transformation, because we had some criteria around who we were going after. So obviously their main call to action on their website then had to be request a demo, because you don't make an instant sale with this type of client, but we definitely, like, all our call to actions on the site were like learn more and then request a demo. And obviously here, like, once you grab this type of information, you have a lot more knowledge about who you're talking to, and you can research that person before you even have a sales call. So one of the things we did was research their competitors, and we found out there was a very successful company out of Italy. There was, this is just one example, but they already had like testimonial from the client, a very large client, well-known. They had blog posts, so we were looking at the types of content they were creating. They had case studies, so that's what we were up against. So when we were starting to create content, that's what we were working on, is trying to get those types of things in place. So like I said, don't reinvent the wheel. Look at what your competitors are doing and just do it better. Target your audiences. So we identified 3 target audiences, which I think is enough for most companies. So you have your primary audience, who's like your main, I call it like your low-hanging fruit. And then you've got your secondary audience, who's someone that can definitely influence the decision, or it could be another purchaser. And then you've got your tertiary, so the kind of the third ideal type of client. So in this case, we had, inside a very large organization like Liberty Mutual, which is based in the US, we had like the VP of risk engineering as somebody we would want to touch base with. So that was like, we profiled that person and what they do, where they play, their political beliefs. I mean, anything you can think of that we could find, we were trying to kind of find the similarities between the types of people who work in this field, like engineers, very black and white, don't always know a lot about technology, things like that. So you really want to understand your audience before you start writing content, or sharing new, content you find online. And then the next person was more like a data scientist. They're head of global innovation, one of the top 3 property insurance companies in the country. So it's like, you're obviously dealing with someone very sophisticated, but they're obviously going to be more looking at, like, if you're writing a blog, for example, it would have to be something very technical to show your chops, that you know what you're talking about and you understand their language. And then the last person is more of like a gritty, scrappy engineer who started their own business and works kind of on the periphery of insurance, where they're actually being outsourced by large insurance firms, or they're serving directly the client and kind of checking the work of the insurance companies. So again, very sophisticated engineer types, but also it's their money, so they're a lot more attached, like their budgets are a lot smaller. So you're talking to 3 very different types of people. So when you're creating content, you got to think about those 3 people when you're writing, and each piece you should have that person in your head, like what they look like, their age, where they live, like as detailed as you can get. And then obviously you want to plan. That's your next step. So You want to plan your monthly campaigns. And again, the more detailed, the better. This is just an example. Um, I would typically try to issue a blog at least twice a month and maybe do one webinar a month. Um, and you can repurpose the content, right? Like you're creating content and then, on a blog, and then you find ways to put it into a webinar, or vice versa. You do a summary of your webinar on your blog. And then, if you already have a bit of a database going, which is very, very, very important in business to business. It's like the first thing I tell people is get your database going. Just like name, company, location, size. If you can figure out, like usually LinkedIn, you can get an idea of like how many employees and that kind of thing. And the more you understand your customers and who's following you and reading your e-blasts, the better. So could then share those blogs through the e-blast as kind of like a newsletter, or invite them to a webinar. So again, that's more content. And so here I've just broken it down at the bottom. I'm hoping you can see just like how I would do it. So, as detailed as I can, like who's responsible, what's the project, notes is like the progress, the status of where you're at, like, and then the deadline is obviously the most important. Oops. And so, content's great, but until you have a website, I'd say don't start your content. So you want to get that website up and running. You want it to be super clear with a very clear proposition, a value, like a differentiator of like your tagline and who you are and what you stand for, a very niche message. And then videos are very popular as content right now, because you can share a video on your website, then you can put it on, LinkedIn. You can put it in an e-blast and send it out to people, and people are far more likely to watch videos than they are to read something. So as long as it's fairly short to start. So I would just advise, get that website looking beautiful, because you can't really do PR or content marketing until you have that in place. You want to develop blogs that are embedded with your key search terms. That's huge. And we really wanted to rank for risk engineering and AI. And we were fortunate because it's an area that we found our competitors hadn't really gone after. Everybody was going after underwriting. Again, like technical terms, but it makes a huge difference, because it's like, oh, if I don't have to compete with the word underwriting, but I can compete with the word risk engineering, I'm far, far ahead. And that's just like a different department within insurance. And then one thing to keep in mind is that 3% of each blog should use your keywords. And you want to be creating content that positions yourself as a thought leader. So one of the easiest ways is actually to interview people in your industry that you consider like align really well with your brand, whether it's an advisor you have, or your own thoughts, and maybe someone's interviewing you. And then of course, like checklists are really huge, infographics are huge, things like that. But I find like even just a simple blog interview with somebody who's considered an expert in the industry can go a long way. So as an example, this guy we interviewed, he's a board advisor, and we met him through just doing very exploratory interviews, discovery interviews with people in the industry to figure out what their pain points are. And he ended up becoming like one of our biggest advocates. He was the one that kind of told us this is a pain point in our industry. And so we featured him, and it was fun. Like we did his career as a risk engineer, which is, we researched online, had not really been done. Nobody gets interviewed in this industry for some reason. And we put a photo of his family. And then we also talked about like all the technological changes he's seen since when he used to do these crazy large reports on a typewriter until now. And so it went viral. All the people in the industry were just so excited because he's highly respected, and he shared it on his profile, and we crafted the message for him. He didn't really have to do too much, gave him the link. and some hashtags to make sure, you know, the article got found. And his, I think we had 2,000 impressions within the first week, and like now I think we're up to like 6,000 impressions. So one article can go a long way, and it put us on the map. And so like for Orbiseed, when we created the website, which was back in May, till October, we managed to go from 0 page views to 4,600, which is a lot, believe me, when you're a brand that's nobody's heard of. And a lot of those visits, you can see 551 were from LinkedIn. And then that, yeah, that, like I said, that one LinkedIn post in the first 2 weeks got like 2,000 page views. Questions so far? Okay. Another great way to take your content is if you've written a blog that you're really proud of. I went on LinkedIn and found sort of like insurance thought leadership groups. There was all kinds in every industry. There's food and beverage. There's, you know, some one of the ladies was discussing how she's in kitchen cabinetry, and like for any field, any vertical, there is definitely a group that like chats and has newsletters and email databases that they communicate with about your industry. And within insurance, we found out about insurance thought leadership. People kept referring to it in all our like interviews with potential customers. So we basically were like, how can we get our blog on their page? So, you know, it was just a matter of calling them up and being like, you know, I know you curate content. Can you, I noticed they just repurpose people's blogs and put them on their site, but their site has way bigger following than we ever would. So, you know, 40,000 page views per month on their website, a 26% open rate. That's quite good every week for this, you know, the 6 main articles that they feature in an e-blast. And it goes right into the inbox of like the types of clients we're looking at, we're like, we want to go after. So we took the article about Ralph and we repurposed it and we sent it to them and they ran it. And they've actually run 2 articles in 2 months from us. So, you know, about like an AI checklist and things like that. And, you know, they tell you, okay, take this out. It's a bit salesy because obviously on your own website, you can be a little, toot your horn a little bit more. But when it comes to press, like, you know, there's usually a lot of your content will be worthwhile to press, and nobody wants to pay for articles anymore. So if you offer to be an expert for you know, your industry, guaranteed if you write an article for free, you'll probably get it picked up by somebody, as long as it's, you know, fact-based and well researched. Another great way is to be an expert on a panel. You know, here you can see the Jack Leo, he's the founder of Orbiseed. We started getting him on the building management circuit because that's another area we're expanding into. And so it was just really interesting. It's like, he knows the stuff about technology. So we were like, you know, how can we feature him? And when it came to, you know, comes to talking about like something really sort of futuristic, like the digital twin, he's super excited and passionate. So again, like, you know, joining associations and offering to be on panels, even your local chambers. I've done so many things for Aurora Chamber and now York Region, just because I called and asked, like, can I contribute anything? And I don't want to be paid. I just want to share what I know, share knowledge. So another area, and this is really for the startups, like the SaaS startups, but someone mentioned they'd worked for Venture Lab before. And I mean, there's so many accelerators and startups within York Region, Durham Region, like every region has basically innovation labs. Toronto's saturated with them. So we pitched to get into Techstars, so which is a global effort. I think there's like 900 applicants from all over the world who pitched to be part of Techstars Toronto alone. There's Techstars in the US as well. And they got in. So they went through this very intensive mentorship / like pitching with investors for 3 months, but it was totally worth it. And even just for the demo day we did, it was live streamed on YouTube, and investors from all over the US and Canada were tuning in. And he was one of 10 companies selected. So he pitched Orbiseed. So again, you can take that content and reshare it to your channels. So always good to have a third party endorsement than you telling the world how great you are. So then we start to measure our success, right? Which I thought was a bit of a tight timeline, but in fact, we did great. I think it was May to October, around 6 months. Orbiseed started ranking number 3 and number 4 on Google after like advertisements and like this massive insurance company, which has like endless content called AXAXL. And, there we are right underneath for AI solutions for risk engineering and automation. So we're quite pleased with that. And I think the more niche your business is, the higher likeliness you'll, move up the ranks on Google. So sometimes finding those like unique search key terms, working with an expert like Miriam is very, very beneficial, because then you can start to use those words in your marketing, your content, and it will help improve your ranking. So a couple more ways that, I wanted to give you like a breadth of business to business client examples to help you leverage your content marketing. Excuse me, I'm just gonna have a glass of water. So this is a local client of ours based in Stouffville. They're called LD Human Resources, and they're really into like we do typically 2 blogs a month, 1 e-blast, 1 webinar a month. And they have a very small team, but they're just very dedicated to brand awareness and being online and being visible. And they have some like really good competitors. So it's almost like, if you have a lot of competitors, you just, it's part of the game. You got to do it. So we promote a lot of events through Eventbrite. And then we gather those, you get access to those contacts. You get like an Excel sheet of contacts once they register for your webinar. We pay to promote it on Facebook and Instagram as well, so that we can boost the number of people who actually attend the webinars to make them worthwhile, because they can be a lot of work. And then we promote them through email to our subscribers. And every time we get people joining our webinar, those people get added and segmented into our e-blast list. So it's amazing, like doing a webinar on a topic that's general enough that like a lot of people can tune in, like mental health, for example, and doing it in a timely way. So we did it in October, which is Mental Health Month. It's just a great way to start gathering subscribers to your email, email is one of the fastest growing ways to create content and connect with your customer directly and keep them abreast of everything you're doing or any new offers, promotions you have. You want to leverage brand partnerships. So Louisa, who's the founder, I kind of was like, you could do these webinars, or you could go and work with Aurora Chamber or Stouffville Chamber and do it with them in partnership, so that you're reaching a much bigger database. So, and then we have something to talk about on your Instagram and on your Facebook and on your LinkedIn, because now you're becoming a thought leader. So she was really part of the whole like COVID, like how are you going to reopen back in, May, June, when they were talking about reopening and what's that going to look like. She was part of a panel. And it's amazing because she was side by side with some like very well-known car dealerships in town and other very well-respected business owners. And so she's reaching a broader audience than maybe what she could have reached on her own with her brand. And then the last thing she did, which was kind of recent, is she did a 1-minute video about returning to the COVID in the workplace, because she was getting this question over and over from her clients, and she wanted to she wanted to be able to answer this question online because she knows like tons of people have the same question, which is like, what happens if COVID happens in my office? Like, I want to protect the privacy of the person that gets sick, and all these, like, lots and lots of questions. So we decided, like, why don't you do a short, peppy 1-minute video with transcript underneath so people can watch it on mute if they want to, and just have like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, whatever, just of like what you need to do in case somebody in your office comes down with COVID and you're the employer. Like, how do you manage that communications with your team? So it was really, it's like she got, that also went viral, and she was pretty nervous to do video. I think we all are. But I was like, you have a great persona, like you're charming, you're meaning, like everything you say is so like passionate. I said, you know your stuff, so just do it. And there's lots of sites now that help you like edit movies and things like that, and it's way easier than people think. Like even on LinkedIn, I think you can automatically upload a video and it will automatically add a transcript to it so that there's actually subtitles underneath. Questions so far? No? So once you have some of this content, including on your website, ideally you have a case study with a respectable client and brand. In this case, I'd worked on Limelight platform, which is again another SaaS platform. One of their first clients was BMW. So we're like, okay, we have to do something with them and then take it and do some PR around it. So they had a case study with them, and it was just a matter of going to the client and saying, do you mind providing us a testimonial, and we'll run it in a press release or a pitch. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Like, how can we help you? So, they got the go ahead from the marketing manager for Canada, who does events. And this particular company specializes in automation of event marketing and experiential marketing. And yeah, so that was really a really cool moment when it started also getting picked up by like the marketing industry, as much as it was, like seed rounds of funding and things coming in, which, we put on the wire and we spent money to do that. This was much more like, hey, going to like all the local tech company, tech publications and marketing publications, because we know marketing managers read the marketing publications. I think this magazine is now called Strategy, but yeah, that was a big win for us because PR is essentially free as long as you, and my background is in PR, so I like to work with people on helping them amplify their messaging and their content that they've already created to get more eyeballs on their and traffic to their website. So again, another way to amplify your content is to do like a strategic PR campaign. And so I worked with Wealth One Bank of Canada, which was just launching. It was 2016, so it was a while back, but it was incredible because again, it was just very targeted strategic campaign where we launched first with Bloomberg. It kind of went viral because, this bank was opening and dedicated to Chinese Canadians. And then, the CEO, we put him on a circuit, and we were able to kind of utilize some of the content which we'd already sort of strategized about and get it in front of like big publications. And they also did events, which events are, while during COVID are not ideal, there are virtual events, but we had big galas in Toronto and Vancouver. And again, it was an opportunity to kind of take the photos from that and take all the buzz and put it on a circuit for the CEO to have things to talk about. And of course, we did a whole Chinese campaign and English campaign, and then it got picked up in China. So we had investors coming in, like, well, not investors, I would say like customers calling in from China the next day and California because of the Bloomberg piece. And they were wanting to deposit money in the bank. So it was quite a win for the team. Now, other content you can create is, and these are very like, it's kind of like everybody does these. They do take a while to do, but they're called white papers or e-playbooks. They're essentially extended guides on how to do one or two things. Often they use case studies to kind of showcase the brand and what they do well. They tend to be professionally written just because they're longer, and long form it's an art. So like we get hired by companies to create these white papers and e-playbooks. And ultimately what you're trying to get is in order for someone to download and see this product or have it sent to their email, they have to provide you their name, their industry, their email, and you obviously know they're interested in what it is you're doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken the time to fill out like all that information and download the book. So it's a direct way to kind of follow up. Like oftentimes, I'm sure you've all experienced this, you'll download a white paper or a playbook, and then next thing you know, like the next day, you get a phone call from a sales rep, just looking to find out what interested you and trying to make contact. So infographics are another great visual way to show content. There's actually, I wish off the top of my head, I can't remember it, but there's actually like free sites that help you create infographics. Of course, they're not probably customized to your liking, and it may be actually more affordable just to work with a graphic designer. But infographics are essentially like quick, snackable bites of information that show how either research you've done, or maybe you've partnered with a research firm to conduct a survey. It can show how successful your program is, how many people are involved, or it can do all kinds of things. It's just a visual way to show off statistics about your brand or something related to your brand that provides value to the reader. And this is so important, and I don't see it enough, is, one way to earn trust with potential new clients is working with your existing clients and getting those testimonials. Don't be shy to ask them for a LinkedIn testimonial. Don't be shy to even say, I'll write it for you, just so you highlight the things you really want people to know about your brand. And if they approve it, then send it to them and they can post it on LinkedIn. It's very, very easy to do. Google reviews now, things like that. But most importantly, like, have it on your website. And I'm a big fan of putting like photos of people, or at least their name, their title, and where they work, just to kind of give it more, like, I don't like anonymous testimonials. I don't think that really does you any favors. Another way is to leverage industry associations. So within marketing, my background again is PR. So I was part of, International Association of Business Communicators, Canadian Public Relations Society. Everybody has, like, there's Law Society, every vertical, every trade has associations and magazines attached to those associations that are a great way to get your name out there. So either offering to author content or offering to be interviewed. In this case, they approached me, but it's like a small group of professional independent communicators that I'm a part of. And it was such a great opportunity because they were asking me questions about what it's like to be an owner of a creative agency and what advice would I give. So I started sharing it once the article came out, and I put it on every channel I had. And I'm my own worst critic, so I don't like posting things about myself, but I'm trying to get better at it because I realize it's part of the game. And I advocate for my clients to do it, so I know I have to start practicing to do it better. But yeah, it went viral, and it particularly oddly on Facebook. So I think I had like 266 likes and comments, and LinkedIn, obviously. So it's surprising, but even a piece that's within your industry where you're getting kind of recognized by your peers can really help. Oh, I see something in the chat. Oh, okay, Bonnie, I'll come back to you. She's just talking about the type of things she does. Definitely, I'm going to have a Q&A at the end just to answer questions. And then what I'll do is turn off the recording just so, because this will go on to YouTube. So I don't want to get too many personal details from the team, from the group here. Oh, and I added, and this was like kind of an afterthought, but, so again, getting like peer interview or peer testimonials is also good. So for me, it would be like getting a review from a journalist, or in this case, I had worked with Tourism Whistler. This gentleman's now in Halifax when I lived out west and worked for Four Seasons. And so he's not like my client, journalists were my client, but he was somebody who could testify like, hey, she's great to work with and collaborate with. And, we worked closely together on a lot of initiatives for the town of Whistler kind of thing. So, that's very, very helpful. I also really believe in giving back. So joining a board, whether it's your local chamber and trying to just give some free advice based on whatever field you're in, or being a judge, like I got asked to judge the Aurora Large Business Awards my first year here. And it was, it was several hours, 15 hours of my time, but I felt like it's very well, worth it to kind of give back. I think people like to see like the person behind the brand. And one of my biggest, passions is mental health. So I was on the board for CAMH Engage for a couple years, 3 years before I start having kids. And it was, it was so rewarding. It was a great way to network. It's definitely a very well recognized brand now, especially in the last 2-3 years. But I just, it's like offering my marketing, PR, event planning services. Really, it helped me get like testimonials and just people who normally I wouldn't mix with to see my work. And there's some very well-known families involved on these boards, so which I didn't know at the time. But I find like sometimes when you're doing free pro bono work, it can be a little bit taxing just with hours. It's usually after work hours, but it's always well worth your time to get those advocates in your corner. And some of the best like testimonials I got were from people I worked with in volunteer roles. And in fact, that role got me an account with South Lake Foundation, the local hospital here. So, you never know where it's going to lead. You want to educate, inform your potential clients and existing clients, and like all the influencers around those people through social media. So again, LD Human Resources, she has a coordinator on her team who is really savvy with social media, and beverage marketing helped with the strategy, and we help craft the messages when it's really crucial stuff like live events and things they're doing, or contests and things like that. But even just hiring like a student who's savvy with Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn can be an amazing investment. And companies like mine, we get hired to kind of help come up with the strategy and oversee those people sort of periodically. And sometimes that can be the best use of your money. So I just wanted to address nonprofits. Again, I mentioned CAMH Engage earlier. Nonprofits, I think it's so important, and a lot of them miss this, is just to leverage sponsors. So leverage your partners and anybody who aligns with your brand, like try to leverage them through your content, or get them to do a video or show their passion and let them be advocates for you. In our case, it was Gym True Living was like a huge proponent of CAMH. And then from there, we attracted like banks and things like that, but really like putting their content on our channels to help show potential new sponsors, hey, we give you value for money, and really tracking the analytics, and also like providing packages and things like that. So it's very obvious, like what you get at each stage of, or whatever price point you're willing to pay to sponsor an event, for example. The next part is you want to measure your success. So measure traffic. Where's your traffic coming from? You can look on the back end. As long as you have business sites set up for Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's like you can see all kinds of analytics, like men, women, age, get a sense of where they're from, what other interests they have, what they follow, what are the peak times people go online. Like, it's incredible. You want to evaluate your conversions. So looking at your content and seeing whether or not it's actually driving the click-throughs to ask for a demo or book a meeting, schedule a meeting with me, let's talk further. So you also want to look and see, like, not just your content and who's clicking through, but what do they do after that? Like, are they going through the full sales cycle, and are they actually converting into a sale? And that's like essentially how you measure if they're the right fit for your company, if they're the right customer. And there's a lot of learning and tweaking that happens along the way. So you're going to be tracking the engagement. And I would say, traffic to a website's great, like visitors to a website. But if you can use like a heat map, or there's tons of apps out there now that allow you to do that on your Squarespace site or WordPress, but you can actually see like where people are spending time on your site, how long they're staying on your blog, all of that kind of stuff. And on social media, it's even more clear, because it's like if they're commenting and liking and following and sharing it with a friend, that your social media is really connecting with your customer. Another way you can do it is an SEO audit. So there's quite a few sites that do it for free. Miriam also provides an SEO ranking through her site, and monitoring authority. So there's basically something called the domain authority. So through SEO, you can find out how well you're scored. And with LDHR, like we were aiming for, I think 92, 94%, Orbiseed, same thing. And we've managed to get there, but it's takes time, can take like a year, but it's well worth it when you start noticing people contacting you that you would never have been in contact with before, because your content's actually working. So I'm just going to stop sharing for 1 second. Does anyone have questions so far? And I know Katie, who is my counterpart, is actually going to join in a minute. Does anyone want to jump in with any questions while I contact her to jump on? What have you guys thought so far? Has it been helpful? Oh, hi, Katie. Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. Katie, you're on mute. Do you want to quickly jump up and tell me if you can see my screen here?
Hi, yes, I can.
Hi.
That was good timing.
That's very good timing.
Okay, great.
So
did you already introduce me?
I haven't really introduced you, so I'd love for you to tell everyone about yourself. Well, I mentioned you at the very beginning, but just about what you're going to talk about today.
Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for joining this webinar presentation. I know I was able to review the slide deck in advance, and I've certainly heard Elena talk about these topics before, and I know there's lots of great insights here, so I hope you're gaining a lot from today's presentation. My name's Katie Zeppieri, and I'm working as an account supervisor with Beverage Marketing, and I have been working in the events, PR, marketing space for approximately the past 7 years, growing my own agency and working with a lot of B2B and B2C clients. I'm also the founder of a female speakers bureau called Girl Talk. and have started several other companies and endeavors over the years, and learned quite a bit from both the successes and the failures of those. So I'm really excited to have been asked to jump in here and talk a little bit about the social media perspective for B2B content marketing, and giving some sort of tips and insights based on my own experience as an entrepreneur, and also as a marketer working with clients, as well as a very light kind of micro social media influencer. I'd say primarily my role for that is on Instagram, but I also have just seen the impact of using LinkedIn as a really incredible tool to gain exposure, make really valuable connections, and get business opportunities and leads. So the first part of what I wanted to chat about in my segment here is LinkedIn, because when it comes to B2B content marketing, to me, like, LinkedIn is at the top. And it's a place that's a free, social media, if you will, kind of platform that allows you to do so many things. Like, I feel like oftentimes the softwares and all the stuff that we're kind of like paying for and that don't even give us sometimes what LinkedIn does in terms of direct access to a pool of potential clients and customers. So I wanted to just go through some of the many features of LinkedIn and just give some quick tips on how to use them. Now, LinkedIn is constantly growing and evolving and changing. There's been some new features which have I think really pointed to the direction that a lot of social media is going. So first off, your page. Your page is that wonderful profile picture there, your cover image, your bio right up at the top, a little bit about you, that section. This needs to be optimized for success. And it sounds quite obvious, but it's one of those things where it just takes a couple of hours to kind of sit down and think it through. You want to ensure that when people click onto your profile, within a quick couple of seconds, they get a sense of who you are and what you do. Like, this is like an initial, think of it as like a business card online, but way better, or a resume online, but way better, because everything's interactive and clickable. So as you can see, this is one of our clients with beverage marketing. This is Jim Russell, who's a co-founder and president of our client, Orbiseed. Right off the bat, great profile picture, professional looking, and has a branded cover photo that communicates something about the company. Working with Jim on crafting that sort of bio statement up at the top, the headliner tells you not only who he is and what he does, but gives you like a very quick one sentence on the company. So this is something to think about for yourself and for your business. How can you communicate right off the top? Before we've scrolled at all on Jim's page, we know a little bit about what he does, and we know a little bit about what his company does, which is fantastic, because if it rings a bell for someone, they're going to scroll down and want to learn more. Your about section, your bio, like, this is where you talk about your role within the business, some of your core experience and competencies, what you bring to the table. Like, do not be afraid to use LinkedIn and your page as ways to encourage people to reach out, connect with you for sales. And so I always think that the more available that we can kind of make ourselves, even if it's like an info at email address that you're including throughout your profile in the about section and in other various places, like, encourage people to reach out and to connect with you, tell them about you, pull them in. There's so much more that we could go in depth with each of these areas, but even your company description, right? So when you're actually listing lower down in your employment experience, use that space to talk about how your company is going to help people solve a particular problem. Like, make it very clear. So someone reading through could say, okay, wow, this is what this person does. This is how their company could potentially help me. So in addition to your page, like your profile, there's also a company page. Recommend setting that up if you haven't done so already. Yeah, Ellen, I'm going to be on this one for a little while.
No worries.
You got to flag me when my timing is getting too close here. But the company page is sort of a separate page that you build specifically for your business. And it's great because you can interact on LinkedIn as yourself. You can also switch and interact as your business, which is kind of nice to do, to make time to do throughout the week, where you can actually like and interact and comment as your business page. And your business page should be optimized as well, with a very clear headliner at the top, very clear description of what your business does, what services it offers. And I've really noticed, it's so funny, I never really paid attention to company pages until the last couple of years, but I've seen for my clients and I've seen for myself that you will get people, once you start engaging and commenting and posting, following your company page, which is really, really neat as well. So they're kind of like there and engaged with getting your updates. And what can you share there? So posts on both your page as well as your company page. This is like how you get new people and people within your network to see what you're up to and what you're doing. So post the happenings of your business and industry info and insights. So I always like to kind of think about a balance of, 50-50, 50% like highlighting the updates of what your company's doing. And I'd say the other 50% in terms of sharing valuable insights and information that people might want to read, might want to kind of download an infographic, so that they're also getting some really beneficial content and information from you. You're thought of then as like a thought leader in your particular space. Stories. So stories have been added to Twitter recently. They've been added to LinkedIn recently. So these are really, this is a great place to capture some of the behind the scenes. So maybe it's, not something that's like a post-worthy type photo or video, but you can throw it up in your stories. You can tag people in your stories. And I haven't mentioned that yet, but tagging is a wonderful way to use all social media, but especially on LinkedIn. And I've often seen people underutilizing this, tagging not only people, but also companies. So if you're doing a presentation for a company, or you're working with a client, tag the company, tag the people that you've worked with directly, because not only is it going to help show this post throughout your network, but it's also going to show it to the people that you've tagged, their network. So it's just kind of creating this exponential sort of views and insights. Articles. This is where you share your thought leadership. And as I know Elena has been mentioning, like, thought leadership is one of the key components for B2B content marketing. This is where you can make yourself stand out and why people want to trust you. So LinkedIn articles, anything native to the platform, the various social media network is going to promote more highly. So using a LinkedIn article, using their specific platform to draft something, it can be a blog, right? It can be something that you're repurposing from even your website. But any chance for you to kind of share an update, insights, resources, top 10 lists, things that people might want to take a few minutes and read and would be helpful to them. Great way to get your voice out there. Groups, you can search for and join and contribute to communities. These could be things like associations or just like-minded people around particular topics in your industry. Live streaming, also a new addition relatively to LinkedIn. And currently, it's not available to everyone. You actually have to apply to get LinkedIn live stream access, and kind of have to prove that you've done some live streams in the past. The other key thing to note about live streaming is that you cannot currently do it through LinkedIn. You have to use a third-party platform in order to do it. So it is a little bit more complicated than, say, live streaming on other platforms, but something to look at. Some brands are really making use of a monthly webinar, interviewing a guest, and that just is, again, creating thoughtful content that's a benefit to your followers and to your audience, and going to make them engage with your brand a little bit more. And lastly, I just wanted to really emphasize how great LinkedIn is for research. I just think it's phenomenal that you can type any company in the search bar, and for the most part, there are still some companies that are not yet over to LinkedIn, but you can find so many companies, then click to see through their list of employees, then click to see specific roles and do filtering to find the exact person that you might be looking to connect with within a company. And I just think that that is so incredibly valuable to get personal. So when we're doing outreach or when we're looking to build potential client outreach lists, instead of keeping it generic and doing those info at emails, looking for who are those key people within the company that I need to be reaching out to, making a connection. I always recommend when you're sending like a request on LinkedIn, it's nice to include a sentence or two about why you're connecting with that person. And in my experience, I usually love coupling that with, I've sent you an email and just wanted to kind of add you on LinkedIn as well. I think it's a really nice bonus. So, wanted to just talk about a couple of other ways that I've used social media content marketing to kind of help with B2B sales. Podcasting is a great way to do so as well. And I think this is where it can feel overwhelming. And I've certainly felt this as well. It's like, oh my goodness, how am I going to create content in all of these different platforms? Should I start a podcast? Should I start a YouTube channel? Should I be doing live streaming? Like, which of these should I be focusing on, or should I be doing them all? And I think when you're kind of just starting out and getting started with this, it's important to really pick one, I think, as like an anchor point, and that becomes like your key main long form content. And then from that, you can kind of repurpose and use it and use the content in smaller pieces in other areas, if that makes sense. So don't feel overwhelmed that you need to be doing this all. I'd say pick what makes best sense for you. In the Q&A, if you had any specific questions, I'd be happy to make a recommendation based on which of these platforms might make most sense for you. So for me, if we move ahead to the next slide here, I want to talk about how I've been making use of live streaming in 2020. Yes, at the start of COVID, I had to make some really key decisions around pivoting parts of my businesses. And one of those, with the loss of in-person events and speaking, was like, okay, like how can we connect and still get those great conversations happening with really important and valuable content and getting videos recorded of that as well. And so the idea came to start a daily Instagram live show. And so 6 days a week for 13 weeks, I interviewed 83 high profile women. This picture here is actually with Rachel Lindsay Abasolo. She was the first female Black bachelorette on ABC's The Bachelorette. I got to interview a lot of Bachelor and Bachelorette contestants, which was really, really cool, as well as even Canada's Minister of Small Business, TV personalities, and just some incredible women that I look up to and admire. And so this was a great example to me, and why I picked live streaming, and I used Instagram here, was a few reasons. One, really, 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 really easy to do. You just pick up your phone and you hit live. It didn't involve a lot of setup and process. So that's one of the benefits that I see of lives, where I felt like, this is just personal opinion, when you're kind of starting out, like a podcast requires a little bit more effort. Like you got to kind of like learn the different technologies and make sure the audio is amazing and worry about editing and all of that sort of stuff. And you're also getting people to leave a platform. So they not only, it's great that they follow you on Instagram, but they have to go leave that to go to listen to the podcast. Again, my personal opinion, when I was looking, okay, how can I get some immediate sort of traction and get some content out there fast, live streaming was great. And not only that, when I started actually at the beginning of COVID, the recording to IGTV was like rough and shaky, and like they weren't cutting out comments. So if you go look back at my stuff in March, there's like weird comments like over the guest's face and all this sort of stuff. It got better. The technology got better as we went along, and more people were live streaming as well. But it'll record your video and put it right up on your IGTV, which is great. So you're getting this recorded content that can then be downloaded. And I worked with a co-producer throughout this 13 weeks. And we actually were able to like edit this video. So instead of it being vertical, we put it horizontal, put some of these videos up on YouTube, put it on LinkedIn, put it on Facebook, repurposing the content. And I'm happy to share that I continue with the live streaming, not daily after that. And I hit 100 interviews with women by the end of 2020, which was just fabulous from an educational perspective, an inspiration perspective, but also from a strategic content marketing perspective. So the repurposing part is the key. Once you've picked your anchor content, your long form content, are you going to go really heavy into blogs? Are you going to go really heavy into YouTube videos? Are you going to go really heavy into podcast? Are you going to go really heavy into live streaming? Which of these areas are you going to focus on as like your anchor piece? Once you have that, it's about how do we cut up the content and make it bite-sizable. So whether it's little short quotes that are tweeted out or become quote images that you share, whether it's little edits of videos, which now Instagram Reels is phenomenal. So you can make like really quick, great, entertaining videos. Sometimes even I know brands are finding great traction on TikTok. So definitely look into that. But what I'd say for a B2B perspective and how I use it is sometimes I like to make my videos on TikTok because they have such great, easy tools to use. Download it, save it to your phone, and then you can be posting these on LinkedIn and some of your other platforms as well. So looking for short form content, because there really is a rise and an increase in 2020. We saw a focus on these short videos. TikTok is increasing, the addition of Reels to Instagram, which are 15 to 30-second videos, are showing us that this is kind of the direction that social media is moving into the future. And so looking for ways where you can take advantage of that and create these bite-sized, easily consumable, shareable pieces to increase shareability as well as engagement. So lots more to share, of course, on this topic, but wanted to just give you this like top level social media insight and happy to discuss further in the Q&A.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly talk to you guys about tools of the trade. And this is just a bit of a bonus. We're always looking for inexpensive tools to achieve your business to business content marketing goals. So for social media, Hootsuite's the main one I use for business to business. And then for my LDHR client, there's a company called Later, and they help you schedule Instagram content and plan it in advance so you can see like the 6 tiles and have multiple people approve and draft copy. So it's very good to use. For website design, I highly recommend WordPress just because it's kind of like an open source. So no matter where you move your website, you're not going to lose that content or that the traction you've gained. Squarespace is far easier to use. I apologize, I wrote 6, I meant Wix, Wix.com. I find Squarespace is actually the best for if you're brand new to a web design and you're trying to do it, a lot of it yourself and updating yourself. It's very intuitive, very simple to use. And it maintains the mobile to desktop scalability. So you can't really mess that part up when you're working with Squarespace, which is very important. For live stream webinars, I mean, Katie's iterated like LinkedIn Live, Instagram Live, like what's it called again? I keep saying it wrong. Instagram does.
Instagram Live, which one are you referring to?
Instagram Live, or it's the IGTV.
IGTV, yes.
I always get that mixed up. Zoom, I use Zoom for webinars as well. And Facebook Live is okay. I think it just depends what kind of audience you are talking to. Video editing and hosting. So Vidyard is a really cool one because you can have it linked. So you can have a screenshot of your video on your website, but it's not taking up all that data and space. And what Vidyard allows you to do is it links back kind of like a YouTube channel where the person can then go and view it through Vidyard's website, view a video, but you'll also be able to track who's opened, who's viewed it, for how long. They have a lot of analytics. For editing, iMovie isn't bad, and Vimeo is another great hosting site. For design, we are big proponents of Canva. It's basically for the amateur designers where, you know, especially if you're doing a couple channels like Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, it has the ability to take something you've designed in Canva and resize it instantly for the other channels. So, you know, obviously you need good visuals these days. And so it's really important you have a bit of a design branding element to what you do, and everything's very consistent. And the pro account, if you upgrade, which isn't that much per year, I think it's under $100, it allows you to have access to a wealth of stock photos, videos, like elements and GIFs and stuff like that. Any questions? So I will upload in the chat as we do the Q&A next, a free takeaway. So again, it's a content calendar template, and it just allows you to kind of customize it and get started on your own content calendar and plan. And just as a final thought, we just wanted to remind you that content marketing is really like a first date. If all you do is talk about yourself, there won't be a second date. So if you require any help to do with content marketing, it's kind of our specialty, especially business to business. And we are the team to help you stand out. So thanks everyone for coming. And this is my contact information. Should you want to reach out or discuss, we do offer a free consultation, about 40-minute consultation. If you want to discuss your strategy or your marketing tactics, we're happy to do that with you. And right now we have a Q&A session we're going to open up. So for the next 10-15 minutes, if you have any specific questions to do with your business and content marketing, we are more than happy to help. And thank you for joining us.
I love that. Who is it here? Nadia's picture is like a superwoman outfit.